Oh, look who it is. The boy savior.
This my city. All my gangsters, man, are you with me? You're gonna tear into here real quickly. Take it backwards, my simply. This my town. To get it back, man, it's gonna go down. In the way of my messing around. If you hear me church, take it back my crown. This my city.
You know, it's interesting to see how time can really shift the public consensus on a show. After Season 8 of Game of Thrones came out, I still remember plenty of people being in denial, and yet today it's pretty much the modern example of how not to end a story. And although Arcane hasn't fared nearly so poor, it hasn't exactly aged like wine either. The story jumps all over the place, character arcs are rushed to say the least, and it doesn't exactly have the most cathartic ending. But in all the time people have had to ponder the series, I dare say the single take that's aged the best is that Ekko is the GOAT. And honestly, that shouldn't be the case. Ekko is a product of Riot Games, the company behind League of Legends, a community so toxic you're likely to read the N-word more times in a single game than in your average YG song. And yet, I consider Ekko to be easily one of the greatest black characters ever written. But before we can properly dissect what makes Ekko such an exceptional character, let's first define what is good and bad representation. This is something I briefly touched on in my second ever video, Blackwashing, Watching Anime While Black. It's a banger, check it out after this. In that video, I mentioned in passing how Killer Bee from Naruto, despite being a character I really like, just isn't great representation. And that take was surprisingly controversial. I got a lot of comments letting me know just how much some people really did appreciate his character, and I'll admit, a year later, after a whole lot of reflection and analysis, I'd like to apologize.
To absolutely nobody!
The problem with B is the same problem that plagues most poorly done representation, of not just black people, but any marginalized group: stereotypes.
The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a stereotype as a standardized mental picture that is held in common by members of a group and that represents an oversimplified opinion, prejudiced attitude, or uncritical judgment.
We all know what a stereotype is, from the loud, angry black women so often seen in Dan Schneider's Nickelodeon shows, to the ignorant, lazy oafs of minstrelsy. But instead of me walking you through each and every trope, let me ask you another question. How do stereotypes form? Well, it's important to understand that stereotypes form as a result of limited exposure of one group to another. And while yes, this is occasionally an intentional effort to slander a group or fearmonger, it also doesn't have to be. Let's isolate an example: the black people as unintelligent yet athletic trope.
I'm saying you're a football player. It's in your blood.
That's racist.
Your soul.
That's racist.
For decades, the world of sports competition was the only place a black man could be seen, succeed, and perhaps most importantly, have his voice heard. There was a Muhammad Ali of rocket science, a Michael Jordan of architecture. But among marginalized groups, it's celebrities who are expected to be ambassadors for the culture. This means that when your entire idea of black culture is what you've seen on TV or the internet, you're gonna get a disproportionate idea that all black people rap, are smooth talkers, are uneducated, or perhaps are athletic. And notice how some of these tropes can sound positive. After all, who doesn't want to be better at basketball? But no stereotype is truly a good stereotype, since regardless of the context, it is rooted in generalizations that treat the entire group as a monolith. That leads to depersonalization, which then leads to dehumanization. As someone who grew up attending predominantly white institutions, I know firsthand that a lot of the stereotypes don't seem harmful on the surface and can sometimes be downright hilarious. There were people who assumed I could dance, freestyle on the spot, or didn't mess with me because they thought I could fight. But see, those are the same assumptions that drive delusional Twitter threads about black people being able to kill Asian men with a single punch like we're Saitama or something. Like, this is why I don't have most social media. I can't deal with this level of stupid on a regular basis. So let's talk stereotypes within the context of entertainment. An inescapable consequence is that black characters have to exist within the framework of marketability. Over time, stereotypes become normalized. They stop being weird to us, and instead, their absence becomes their most notable quality. It's the reason rappers will hire gangs to pose with them. Image is everything, and the marketing teams behind those rappers know this. You end up with this chicken or the egg-esque conundrum, trying to figure out whether or not marketing executives push this stuff because it's so popular, or if it's so popular because they push it constantly. Regardless, the end result is usually the same: an often white businessman selling the image of blackness to audiences worldwide. This is true even among black audiences. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where, because we grow up only seeing one type of success, one idea of masculinity, or anything else that is important, integral even, towards developing a sense of self, consciously or not, we begin to want to imitate exactly what we see. And the cycle repeats itself. Now, let's get to how Ekko overcomes all that. Ekko's design is pretty far from a stereotypically marketable black teen. First off, his voice.
Don't blink!
Ekko doesn't have an Ariana Grande style black scent.
Kill me, get your ass in here.
Nor does Ekko speak differently in his slang from any other Zaunite. Now, I want to specify, it would not be strictly a bad thing if he did. I'm going to come back to this point in a second, but stay with me. Ekko also manages to avoid the aforementioned strong but stupid stereotype quite well. He is athletic, but by no means a huge guy. He has the physique of someone who spends their time parkouring across the city and tinkering with heavy machinery. In other words, his body fits his circumstances and environment, avoiding the pitfall of racial determinism. Ekko also is extremely intelligent, while also demonstrating a degree of overconfidence and immaturity befitting a teenager. This might sound out of place, but it's also notable that Ekko is dark-skinned. You often will see black characters lean towards a light complexion to achieve max marketability, but I'll expand on that point in a bit. So right now, with me pointing out just how many black stereotypes are absent from Ekko, some of you might even wonder, well, is he really black? You might even interpret my praise of his character as hatred towards traditionally black characteristics. I'm getting to that, but first, to answer the question, is Ekko even really black? The answer is yes, very. If you've never seen Ekko's original design, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room.
Look at the top of his head!
Ekko's mohawk is a not-so-subtle reference to the fact that he is a revolutionary. His codename while in development was the Punk Genius, and contrary to what modern societal conventions may tell you, many pioneers of the genre of punk, in fact, one of the bands credited with literally inventing punk music, was black. Now, it got taken over by rich suburban kids, that's the story of most art, but my point still stands: black is punk, and punk is black. Ekko also has extremely hardworking parents whose only dream is to see him go to Piltover one day, so that he can be successful and live out the American dream, or Zaunite dream, I guess. I'm sure many black college students and grads can really relate to this component of his backstory. I know I certainly do. And also, Ekko raps.
Your best stuff looks like my words, synapses fire and burst.
But I thought you said Killer Bee was bad. Alright, so let me address this, because I don't want anyone to miss the point. I like Killer Bee. Him beating the shit out of Sasuke will never not be hilarious. Yet, he is a rather obvious result of a well-intentioned man, mind you, writing a black character off tropes and little else. Conversely, Ekko still manages to incorporate many elements and cornerstones of blackness, but without fetishizing them or making them who he is, as opposed to factors of his environment or hobbies he enjoys engaging in. There's a difference between engaging in culture versus selling it. It's the reason Hammer Time Thor, a Captain Do-Rag, or Dr. Blacktavius should all give you pause. These characters wear blackness like a robe, a parody really, and if that's what they were, it'd be hilarious, only they're not a parody, they're harmful. Ekko raps without talking like he's in a Dr. Seuss book. He is athletic without resembling one of the ants from Terraformers, and he is smart without being a dweeb who gets shoved in lockers. In other words, he is written well and resembles a person. And sometimes that's all it really takes. But I would be remiss not to mention Ekko's strongest connection to black culture, that being his place of origin, Zaun. Now, for those unfamiliar with Arcane or League of Legends, Zaun is essentially a city within the city of Piltover. Zaun is poor and disenfranchised, Piltover is the bright shining city on a hill. Now, core to this dynamic is the fact that Piltover exploits Zahn for labor, sends masked police squads to control and intimidate them, and literally uses them as a dumping ground, causing the air to be unbreathable in some areas. And honestly, one could draw a comparison between the Zahn-Piltover dynamic and a certain apartheid state, but closer to what I think was initially intended, Zahn is the hood. And, well, frankly, it was not characterized very charitably in its initial lore. Zahn was the realm of evil scientists and wacky monsters. Twitch, Dr. Mundo, Victor, Zack, Singed. Do any of these guys look like they're the hero of their story? The exceptions to this were characters like Vi or Janna, whose whole thing was that they left Zahn and went to Piltover. Vi especially, because if you hated her centrist turn in season 2 of the show, you would probably have a heart attack hearing some of her quotes from the game.
Come on! Resist arrest already! Freeze! Or don't. I don't care.
Girl, what the fuck is you talking about?
Though that's where Ekko of all characters really began to change things. This is a quote by one of Ekko's designers taken from an archive of the now defunct Riot forums.
That's one of the things we're trying to do with Ekko. Our world is way less interesting if everyone in Piltover is nice and everyone in Zahn is evil and has a goop gun obsession. Adding more gray areas to all the factions makes far more interesting stories and characters.
Another interesting note about these forums are how many people asked if Ekko was related to Lucian, another League character, and just to clarify, these characters aren't even in the same geographical location on the League map. I have a certain guess as to why some people thought they were related.
You don't find that suspicious?
And when asked this question, Foshizzle, the lead designer for Ekko, stated, "Ekko has no relation to Lucian. They don't even know each other." And maybe I'm projecting, but to me, this response reads a little passive-aggressive, like he's annoyed at having received this question in the first place. Well, we'll come back to Foshizzle later. To summarize, Ekko is not a character interested in running from blackness. I want that to be clear. Nor is he a lazy caricature of it. In order to write good representation, you need to write a good character. In that way, I would seriously place him in the same league as people like Miles Morales, and once again, I would like to repeat, he's from League of Legends. How? Well, I think I might have found the answer to that, but speaking of Miles Morales, he and Ekko do have a certain other thing in common, don't they?
Is this indeed a snow bunny crisis?
Absolutely, this is the Snow Bunny crisis on steroids.
Okay.
Although this would be a killer opportunity to discuss interracial relationships, I want to save that for a dedicated Miles Morales video I'll make when/if at this point Spider-Verse Part 3 comes out. Instead, there's something else about Ekko and Jinx's relationship I find far more interesting in the context of Black representation: love and masculinity.
Can we just pretend like it's the first time?
It truly says so much that the single most prominent image of Black male sexuality in the social zeitgeist is this. And if you've made it this far in the video, well, first off, thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the road to 10K, baby! But also, you should be aware that although many Black men essentially aspire to this stereotype of sexual stallion, no stereotype is a good stereotype. Black male sexuality is commonly portrayed as cold, almost unbothered with the act itself, as if simply another conquest. The Mandingo is the name ascribed to this trope, and it's based off the film of the same name. Rather missing the point, people with a positive opinion of this trope forget that it is quite literally a reference to slavery, and the fact that there was a time when Black people were treated like breeding horses. Yes, ogled from afar, and like in the movie, even lusted after in some cases, but not afforded the least bit of agency or human dignity. In contrast, Ekko is sensitive, gentle, romantic, compassionate, and most importantly, he is actually in love. He isn't trying to be a player. Nothing about his attraction to Powder is secretly rooted in some deep-seated desire for approval from his male peers. It's not performative, it's real. And it's not portrayed as a joke either or a weakness. Ekko is a bold and confident guy. Heck, he literally leads a resistance movement, but he's also allowed to be genuinely attracted to someone. Shortly after Arcane Season 2 wrapped up, they released an art book with the fun twist that it's covered in annotations that are supposed to be from Jinx. In these annotations, she draws hearts around Ekko, calls him the best boy, and circles the two of them holding hands. That's freaking adorable, and even if it might not sound like much, it's significant in that her attraction towards Ekko goes far beyond the surface. This is even more important to point out because Ekko is dark-skinned. Typically, the darker the skin tone, the more hypersexual and, let's just leave no illusion, animalistic the man is often portrayed to be. Whereas you have the stereotype of the smooth-talking, effeminate, but not too effeminate light-skinned player. Think DaBaby versus Drake.
And I will always be light-skinned just for you.
This also ties into the stereotypes of dark-skinned men being more masculine than light-skinned men, and also raises the question of why we associate animalistic qualities with masculinity, but I don't want to get too off topic. Once again, Spider-Verse video coming eventually. So to bring my point home, this level of mutual care and affection is not easy to come by in popular media, let alone depictions of interracial relationships. Ekko being allowed to feel and express love, and then Jinx returning it with validation? Well, it might not seem like much, but that's kinda why it's so important. Media like this normalizes these partnerships and helps to battle the stereotype and prejudiced history that predates and created the Mandingo in the first place. A movie based on a play, based on a novel, so popular that the original message was lost in favor of sensationalist spectacle and taboo titillation. It sold well then and sells well now, as the meme suggests. It takes a new form, and yet still we see black bodies being exploited by white men for huge profits. And speaking of huge profits, Riot Games. I find myself constantly coming back to this question. How did they create this character I'm gushing over? I am a recovered League player, and what finally got me to quit after over 10 years of playing that game was the truly biblical levels of greed that they had begun to demonstrate. From massive layoffs to $500 skins, no, I'm actually not joking, there are $500 skins, there is no world in which that shouldn't be hyperbole, and also, now that I've expressed that they have $500 skins, I want to reiterate, lots and lots of layoffs. But of course, Riot Games actually didn't make Ekko, because companies don't make things, laborers do. And the lead designer behind Ekko has another name apart from faux shizzle, Matthew Garcia Dunn. He was the lead designer behind Ekko and many, many more. He spearheaded development of Kindred, Aurelian Soul, Ivern, Xayah, Rakan, Ornn, Pyke, Ezreal, Neeko, and Mordekaiser, and assisted in a number of other projects core to fleshing out the lore of League's universe that would later lead to the massive commercial successes of projects like Arcane. But alas, Matthew Garcia Dunn was laid off unceremoniously. This was shortly after his father had passed during the pandemic, and according to him, with Riot fully aware, his wife had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. Matthew was but the first in many waves of layoffs, all incredibly talented people who made Riot what it is today. And yet, Matthew couldn't have put it any better than in his tweet, "Narrative was and is seen as disposable. When we ask for more, they let us go." And just like how Matthew had pointed out to all those formgoers, many corrupt Piltovian nobles are just as twisted as any Zaunite bad guy. When Arcane was released, Matthew congratulated the team, and in that same post included a fun fact that Ekko's personality was partially based on his own younger brother. That, at its core, is really why Ekko is so exceptional. He was written with love and respect, by a team who understood culture without fetishizing it. They endeavored to make a character who felt human, and in doing so, created one of the best black characters ever written. Thank you so much for watching. God bless, and have a wonderful night.